Welcome to Dance to Heal. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how dance and movement can bring healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that movement was vital to my recovery. I created Dance to Heal Wellness and also authored the best-selling book, Outside in Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new techniques to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now.
Caroline Karp is an internationally acclaimed artist, best-selling co-author, and known for her vibrant and expressive style. Her work captures the essence of environments with bold brushstrokes and vivid colors. As the founder of the international online art collective, Caroline created a worldwide platform for artists to connect and collaborate. She can be found at exhibits like DC Art All Night, features like New Visionary magazine, and podcasts like the esteemed Breakfast with Sergio. Caroline genuinely believes passionately in the transformative power of art. So it is now with my utmost, deepest respect and honor and pleasure to invite our amazing guest, Caroline Karp. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
So now I know I already introduced him to you officially. If you wouldn't mind explaining to the audience, how did you get started in art?
Well, I started painting when I was 2. So we can go back to just having like a giant sheet of newsprint paper, maybe many sheets of newsprint paper, and a big fat fluffy brush, and probably one little bit like this, and just like dipping it in the paint. And, just those are my first memories of painting. And I did have an affinity for yellow. So I call those my very first sunflowers when I was 2 years old, right? And then in elementary school, I happened to have a really good art teacher. Her name was Miss Brewster. I remember my elementary school art teachers, Miss Brewster and Miss Inman. And they just made art so accessible, and I just loved it so much that I became passionate about it. Beyond that, I started taking private oil painting lessons at age, I don't know, maybe I was in 6th grade, so 12. I painted with a teacher named Peggy Higgins, who is pretty well known in the wildlife painting community. She painted beach scenes and wildlife, Florida scenes. So she was the one who taught me how to paint very realistically, how to mix the colors, how to roll the brush, how to do pretty much everything as, a young painter. And I found out way back when that I could paint whatever I looked at. So I had some kind of something with my eye where I could really see something. And it was not mechanical. It wasn't a mechanical way of learning. It was a look at this and paint this. So I think what I've kept is I can paint things perfection if I want. Like when I say perfection, I mean like photo, realistic. But I can also skew it a little bit with the way that my eye might see it. And sometimes I do those things on purpose. So I don't even know if have I gone away from your question?
Oh, I love it. So that's how you started. And you are answering my second question, which was the role of art in your life and how it's changed, if at all, because you started explaining to us, right? You can completely do real life art,
right?
Life imitation art, like a photograph. And yet you've noticed that you now can skew how you see it in a different way. Explain.
Well, we're skipping a bunch.
Oh, go ahead. Add in the middle parts.
Okay, so in high school, I had 2 private art teachers in high school. So I had Peggy Higgins, and I can't remember the other one's name, but I used to go to her house. And so I had two different teachers because they had different styles of teaching. And what else happened? I became a teacher. So at age 15, I started substituting for Peggy and her oil painting classes at the same studio I grew up at, which was called the Brush and Palette Art Studio in Tallahassee, Florida. I became the teacher. So I had a group of 8 students. I probably taught 2 or 3 times a week. And then all through college, because my undergraduate is from Florida State University, and that's in Tallahassee. So I taught at the same time I was going to art school.
Cool.
So that was a really big role. So once you teach something, your knowledge of it elevates even more.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're now the teacher teaching a certain way, showing a style, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Then, so I had an art scholarship to Florida State, studying studio art with an emphasis on painting. I had my own, it was amazing. I stayed 5 years because I had this amazing studio space because I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts, right? Which is a little bit, it's more than a BA, it's a BFA. A studio space with big walls in a community of artists.
Yes.
At Railroad Square, and we had shows and whatnot. Now, what happened in college was I went the exact opposite. I started painting emotion and movement and forces, like below the water, let's say forces below the water, like maybe the cold water meets the warm water under the North Wall out in the Atlantic, and the tumultuous what happens there in the crashing under the water. So I went gigantic, painting bigger than I can reach. I had to stand on things. I used a really nice thick canvas to wear, and the darkest paint that I could find was Rust-Oleum paint, right? So I painted with that Rust-Oleum paint in the blues. You can kind of see the blues here. And a really pretty green, the warm green and the cold blue. So I went from the very realist painter to the abstract expressionist painter. They wanted me to think. In school, they're like, okay, we know you can replicate. We want you to think. We want your brain in there. Like, we want what's going on in your mind. Okay. So those are two opposites. After that, I came up with my style, which I have now, which is kind of a combination. If you look at my work, it's whimsical. I do still have abstracts. Sometimes I'm really playful, like you see here. There is a lot of movement in my art. If you go to my website, you'll see, it's all the same artist. But right now I specialize in the iconic buildings of Georgetown, which actually, that's how it was for 6 years. And now I'm branching out. It's not just DC anymore. Like, now I'm traveling even more. So it's Italy, it's Egypt, it's Montenegro, it's everywhere. Sometimes there's going to be some architecture in there, and that's when I kind of have fun with, I'm not going to say distortion, but there's a grandness to it. Like, it's iconic. Whatever I'm painting and I'm looking at it, there's a certain perspective that I'm looking at it, almost like down here and you're looking up, right? And so since I can pull from my ability to paint realism and abstraction, I've married the two. And what I call it is actually expressionism. So it's sort of like, it's like I'm romanticizing the scene.
Yes.
Okay. And so what does art mean to me? I'm going to answer all your questions.
Yeah.
So for a time, I did notice that art was a bit of an escape, right? And I wanted it all around me because it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And I when I have shows, I enjoy painting during the shows, right? And it's a live event. But what if and at first I think I might have done it because remember I had to think about that a little bit before we started because I had forgotten. I
Yeah.
think it was a little bit that I could get lost in the art and not necessarily need to speak to everybody. But you know what? Now I enjoy the speaking to everybody, and I'm really good at talking about my art. I have something to say, but I think maybe 8 years ago, I might have been a little bit more timid on what exactly to talk about.
Yeah.
Now that I've been doing podcasts and being on podcasts I and doing videos about my work,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm now very comfortable talking about my art.
Yes. 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 I love that progression. So speaking about talking about your art, you had mentioned to me when I was a guest on your podcast about you're currently painting with live audiences because
Yes.
a lot of, other painters are very uncomfortable people watching them paint. And you now have audiences oftentimes in the hundreds watching you paint.
Yeah,
What does that mean? How do we get a ticket?
I really love it. The ticket thing is an interesting question because I think that I would really love to do that. I would love to be on stage with somebody like yourself or a pianist where we fill out a concert hall, like, and they have come to watch me paint. Now, when I paint now, I'm usually outdoors. I'm usually part of a festival or at a wedding, you know, or a corporate event, um, or just like last week I was in DC and I didn't really know what I wanted to paint,
Mm.
which usually I do, but I didn't. But I wanted to go somewhere I had not been before, and so my son took me to the United States National Arboretum, and I didn't know what to expect, but I brought all my stuff, and I had a giant roll of canvas, like tall roll, um, and he took me to the most beautiful spot. Beautiful spot. It's called the Ellipse, and it is. I don't want to say it's not a wheat field, but it's certainly got the colors of wheat with wildflowers mixed in. We were under trees, and I laid out my canvas and my paints, and I did have people around me as my audience, but if I don't have immediate people, what I'm also doing is filming. And so that's another level of audience because that goes out to the world,
Yes.
right? So back to that story. What I was painting, which was a small bit of the piece, are the national columns from the Capitol. And they were built, right? But they could not hold up the dome. And so, since they weren't able to hold up the dome, they put them in this field of the Arboretum. This is years ago. Mm-hmm. And so they're just 18 columns, Corinthian columns, just like on a platform with what do you call it? A reflective pool in front of it, right? And what a beautiful kind of weird scene.
Yes.
So I painted that. And I think what makes me unique from other artists is that pretty much every single painting within the past 10 years that I do is recorded. So you can go to my website and you can, see the artwork and then click on watching whatever kind of video that I decided to make of me making the painting.
Whoa. I love
In
that.
2020, I had so much time on my hands that I made long YouTubes, right? Anywhere like from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. And then I narrated them. So not only did I paint, but then I would get on and I would narrate whatever I wanted to talk about.
So cool.
And I have a whole series of those. Nowadays, I think that my just going with the trend of what is popular in social media. So now it's more time lapses and maybe some stills mixed in with some real time stuff. So that's something that it still has the audience factor.
Yes, yes. I
Mhm.
want to go back to a little bit of your reference when you shared that your perspective was changing as you were painting, and the look of it. You weren't doing the realism. You were, and I want to bring up one of your catchphrases. You were romanticizing the picture you saw. And I
Yeah.
would love for you to explain to us how that ties into your catchphrase of romanticize your life. Does that correlate in any way?
Yeah. So say that you're looking at a building and most people are seeing a cement block building. Probably not too interesting. So when I romanticize that, I'm I'm seeing colors. I'm noticing how the sun is hitting at a certain time of day and how that white building actually has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
yellows and pinks and maybe some warmness to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing is I'm making it so it's romantic. It's making it beautiful. So I'm taking the ordinary and making it beautiful. I'm romanticizing. And when you romanticize your life, you're participating with me or you're putting a piece of you that I've captured, romanticizing it. You're hanging it on your wall. And then when you look at it, it's romanticized. Um, Now, I also talked about different, not styles, but techniques. So the one you're looking at here with the sailboats um, is an intuitive piece. Okay. So sometimes I work where I will write on a canvas. I'll just do like a brain dump or a meditation or something that I'm thinking about or something that I'm studying. Write. And then I'll take tissue paper, like black tissue paper, and I'll tear it and put it on the canvas. And I don't know what it is yet. This is so fun to do. I don't know what it is. And I'll start looking at it and I'll see things appear on the canvas. I just sold a piece that is just the best illustration of this. And you can actually watch it on YouTube because the whole story of all of that, it's called Big Old Full Moon.
I was going to ask you. Okay, good. Whoa.
Big Old Full Moon. I sold it to a man named Warren, and he just loves it. But it is an example of that whole thing where I wrote on it. I tore the tissue paper. I put it on there. It was on my easel for a while. I kept going back to it, and I saw a ship. A lot of times I see sailboats. I see sailboats. Another one I did was during the pandemic. It was on my canvas pretty much the whole time, and the story of this is also on YouTube because that's when I was telling stories like long like that. A Sign of Hope.
Yes.
And I sold that painting to Jennifer Hahn up in DC.
I love that painting. Right? Didn't you just sell that?
Hope. I sold it. No, I didn't I sold it a couple years ago.
Okay. I still have one, I think so. Yeah.
That one in particular was a pandemic piece. Torn tissue paper. I live by the water, and right when lockdown happened, there was this helicopter that's flying. I was like, what is the helicopter about? What is the helicopter about? So instead of like worrying about it, I made a giant helicopter on the white canvas, big white canvas. And then once I learned what the helicopter was, I think they were building something in the bay, right? It was not scary at all. And then I started working into it and tore more tissue paper, and it turned into the Manhattan skyline, right? And then I kept painting, kept working into it. And remember the big Navy ship that came, that came into the harbor of my painting as well. Same time, appeared in my harbor. And I started writing through the sky like Starry Night because I love Vincent Van Gogh. So I found like a little like white paint pen, sharp white paint pen. And just like if you look here, I would go like you see how that's sort of an arch?
Yeah.
I would write in that. And I was listening to the news. Okay. So I remember when we listened to the news, the kind of stuff that they said, like the numbers and the tabulations, and that was all on the painting. It's all written. I would like listen to NPR, and I basically was transcribing up in the sky, but when you're far away from it, it just looked like cool floating letters.
Wow.
Then it turned political because it was the election and other stuff going on. And Jennifer's the only one now, because the painting is with her.
Yes.
Who, I don't know if she's read it all, but it's all written in the sky. But it was a way for me. We're going to go back to the beginning of your question. Yes. It was a way for me to work through fear.
Oh, the working through fear part.
Yeah.
This is really, you do art that expresses life, don't you? In so many levels that we're not even aware of.
Oh, yeah.
Ha. Ha 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 ha. So a lot of storytelling for me in dance has been to tell stories at a universal level. Most of my performance pieces are that. Would you say that you're similar in that you are telling a story that we all see ourselves in when you paint?
Yes, absolutely. And I have art that I can see being at museum, right? There's that much level of story to the art. I'm looking at a painting right now that's over there, but and sometimes my paintings shift. For example, this is layer number 37 of this painting. Like there's 37, and it's on purpose. It was called, at first it was called the 50 layers of being 50, because I turned 50 when I started it.
Yep.
About to be 55. So I don't know if that's significant of anything other than I feel like I'm ever evolving, because I think even now I'm going through an evolution as an artist.
Bingo. I'm about to be 55. Didn't we exchange birth dates?
Yes, we're the same.
Yes, right? So we're like birthday babies together. And because I had to try and grab you before your next travel. This launch will launch. We'll both already be 55. So happy birthday to us in advance.
Happy birthday.
And, I really love the sunflower painting behind you. You see little yellow flowers in my frame. The sunflower has always been something that has brought me great joy when I look at it. Would you please explain to us kind of where you drew that picture? It feels as if that painting is in constant motion. And being a dancer, I resonate with that type of energy, even though it's completely still, technically.
So what you need to know about sunflowers and me is I'm a sunflower girl. So this is probably the smallest you'll ever see me paint the sunflower. But this is a series of, this is like one of 12. And I painted them live in Kauai in a gallery that I had the gallery all to myself. And I had people walking in and out as I painted. They're called the dancing sunflowers of Kauai. And if you were to see them they're all the same size. And I typically do paint sunflowers in groups of 12 or 6. They're dancing because if you think of a field of sunflowers, sometimes they're just, they're just standing there looking at you, but typically they're moving and dancing in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's happening here. Sunflowers bring me and I don't know, many people a lot of joy. I started painting them, like I said, when I was 2. It was always kind of my doodle growing up. I know most people have a doodle that they just kind of did. And now it's like muscle memory. I could probably paint sunflowers with my eyes closed. Facing different ways. Mm-hmm. And it's all about the shape of the circle in the middle. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you see this one is sort of a tall circle. It's rotating. If a sunflower is looking straight at the sun, it's big. Everything is there. You see everything. And then as it turns, you're going to see less and less of the center. Mm-hmm. And then it can face up. It can wilt. And I love all the phases. Mm-hmm. And studying that, having like a vase of sunflowers or growing sunflowers, and then just watching the different phases of even from a seed. Yes. And they sprout, and then they're alive, and then they start wilting, and then they're hanging over like that, but they're still so beautiful, and then the seeds come from that. Each year in my classroom, because I teach early childhood also, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do a sunflower study. So it's a big part of our year where we will plant a sunflower house, where they'll come out so the kids can kind of sit in the middle, and we sit out there and we paint and draw them. I have this series of small ones. I have another painting called The Dance of the Sunflower Warrior, which was painted during the pandemic on large canvases. It's a triptych. And you can see it on my website. You can watch the video about it, Dance of the Sunflower Warrior. And it tells a story.
Yes.
And I think that we're all warriors.
Yes.
And I make a correlation between sailboats and sunflowers as being souls. And I don't know if other people can connect with this, but a sailboat has a mast that reaches up to the heavens, right? If you can imagine. And then its hull is empty, and it holds things, and then of course is attached to the earth, where a sunflower comes up from a seed out of the earth and stretches up and up and up and faces the sun, and then wilts, and the life cycle continues of the sunflower. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that's why those 2 things are so important in my work. And now that I've been traveling, I'm getting this connection of cypress trees in Italy. And I was talking to a photographer in San Gimignano, and he was telling me the story that the cypress trees, which are those they're like this, and they are tall, kind of triangular, really tall.
Yes.
He said those are planted to demarcate in the countryside where there are villas or important places like cemeteries, because their roots reach down into the earth, and then the trees reach up to the heavens. So I was like, oh my goodness. So one of my latest paintings has the cypress trees. And then when I go to Egypt, I'm going to be at the pyramids.
Oh,
so do you see how it's all like kind of so kind of similar in nature.
Yeah, that's a full expression of the art of expressive living. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, you're a walking poster for that.
Hmm.
I really do love the fact that we are getting the opportunity to refer the audience to your website, which is CarolineKarpArtist.com. And Caroline has been so kind to give us an offer where you can go to that website and book a VIP Expressive Art Experience. Would you explain to the audience what that is, please?
Yes. Now it looks different for everybody that does this because it's tailor made for that person and what they're interested in. I'll give you a skeleton of what one is like. It's basically the end result is a beautiful commissioned piece. So that's the end. But what comes at the beginning is an experience of working with me.
Mm.
So that might look like we get together in the same town. If somebody is, because I travel, so I could be in DC and somebody can meet with me. I could be in Hawaii where I have a studio and somebody could meet with me. I could be in Tampa, or I could travel to Europe and meet with you,
True.
right? Or you could travel with me. And what we're doing is I'm curating or teaching or guiding or facilitating the art of expressive living and how I kind of do my research of where I want to paint. We come up with what you're interested in, what floats your boat. Maybe you love poppies. Maybe you want to be in a place that there's poppies growing, and we figure out why you want poppies. What does that mean to you? And we pick out, I always want it to be large because I love painting large and people want a statement piece. So we're working together on this piece. So you're going to start it. We're going to start it together. We're going to work together. And then I'm going to finish it up. And then you're going to hang it in your home.
Wow.
So it's like a commission piece that is got your energy in it.
Oh,
I have other offers as well, but this is my favorite one to do with. I did it one time with a little boy.
Mm.
His name's Grant, and there's a video about that too. But his parents, he and his parents went to Costa Rica when he was 3, and they wanted him to remember. So when he was 5, I worked with him, and I went to their home. The mom and dad had wine and cheese out for themselves, and Grant and I did some fun little activities. First, it was on regular paper where he was painting some of the creatures, because I wanted his sort of, little kid style creatures that he remembered seeing in Costa Rica. And he talked to me about what he wanted on the painting. So it was sort of interviews, I had his hands dirty working. Then I got out the big canvas and we did the torn tissue paper just to kind of like break up the canvas. Then worked into it with our hands, and then I took it back to my studio and added all the elements that the family wanted in it. And that was one of those commissions. They wanted to remember their trip to Costa Rica.
Okay, I love that. So you can find that there. And you also have this amazing podcast called Behind the Art Inspiration. I love it. I love it. So hopefully you'll be able to log on, audience, to Caroline's amazing podcast. I got the honor of being a guest. And we'll hope that you will listen in to that interview, and we'll make sure we pop that link in the description so you can still access the podcast. And I just want to close because we've run out of time already. Which chapter are you?
I'm chapter 57, and the funny thing is that it's Romanticize Your Life, the Art of Expressive Living. So if you want to read about it, it's also in the Creative Life book.
So make sure you check out chapter 57. What am I, chapter 25, I think. Don't worry about me. Read about her chapter first. Get your copy of this book, which is available on Amazon. By the time this podcast launches, you'll also be able to get the second book called Radical Self-Love. You're not doing that one, are you, Caroline?
I'm not, no.
You're traveling too much to do that one.
Yeah, I could do it. choosing not to. I'm going to do book 3.
Me too. I'll see you in book 3, audience.
Yeah.
You'll see us in book 3. Either way, thank you so much, Caroline, for coming. We're so excited to introduce you to this audience. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Dance to Heal with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of recovery through movement and learn more ways that you can move your body. To work with me and continue your journey, visit outsideinrecovery.com. Are you ready to move?